What's going on, guys? It's Corey from SuperKamiGuru9000, and this is my review of Naruto Shippuden, episode 266. Now, before you guys watch this video, I do have something of a special treat for you guys. If you guys have been wanting to know a little bit more about the history of SuperKamiGuru9000 and why we've been making Naruto videos for so long, you can get something really cool here. Before you watch this episode or after, you can actually take a look at one of the very first manga reviews that Christian and I ever did for Naruto Shippuden, and it just happened to coincide with what was going on within this episode. So I'm going to put an annotation to that right up top. The 7 swordsmen have returned, or at least the past 7 swordsmen have. And you know what? They're all pretty damn cool looking. But before I even get into them, I just want to say that there's this little subplot that's beginning at the beginning where you get to see that Jugo and Suigetsu are still in jail by the samurai, and they find a way to get out of there. And that's when we get a little bit of character development from Suigetsu himself. We learn that he wants to, of course, become the leader of the 7 swordsmen, and he wants to resurrect them, so to speak. And before he can do that, he needs a powerful sword, and he's looking for his executioner's blade, which is nowhere to be found. And if you were watching the last episode, you saw that Zabuza actually had the broken Executioner's Blade, and he is using it in this episode. And that's what most of the stuff that's going on in this episode takes place. You get to see the battle between Kakashi and his group and Sai and all them fighting against the 7 swordsmen. And what's cool about this episode is that they all get to show off all of their different weapons, because there's actually a summoning scroll that is able to bring out all of their different swords, and this is just pretty awesome. Now, not all of them have their swords. The one big dude who actually was the original user of the Samehara, he obviously doesn't have it because Killer Bee has it right now. But, you know, you got Zabuza with his sword. You have that one character who has the lightning swords, which is very similar to that one filler character, Raiga. And I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it probably was by the creators. You have the sewing sword, which is ridiculously super mega violent, where this dude just takes this like needle-like sword, throws it through a ton of different ninja, and it just attaches them all together. And because everything is sort of shrouded in mist here, you can't really see how ultra-violent this technique is. However, it is easier to see the damage of this a little bit more in the manga, but it's really not too much different. You got the guy who has this giant hammer and axe that are attached to each other, where he'll slam the axe down on you, and then he'll take the hammer part and put that down on top of the axe, and that's able to just crush anything completely. You have this big-ass explosion sword. It basically just looks like this big sword that has these scrolls that can come out of it that have these paper bombs all over them. Awesome about this sword, however, is if you're hit by it, you're either A, going to be cut in half, or B, you're going to fucking explode. I actually learned something really important about Zabuza's sword, the Executioner's Blade, this week. Now, before, it was just a really, really big and impressive sword, and it was pretty damn cool. But now we learned that it actually does have a special ability. And, you know, at first it's a very small sword in this fight. It's broken, it's cut in half. But the more Zabuza fights with it, and the more blood that goes onto the sword actually begins to regenerate. And that's the special ability of it. Since blood has a lot of iron in it, it mixes in with the sword, and it causes the sword to regenerate, so to speak. So that's a pretty damn cool thing. It's something I wish they would have brought up way earlier in the very beginning, but what are you going to do? The bulk of the episode follows Kakashi trying to stop Zabuza and Haku and seal them up so that they can stop the hidden mist technique. I think this is kind of a weird strategy, though, because considering that they're fighting the 7 swordsmen, don't you just think that all the swordsmen could use the hidden mist technique? Eventually it does get to a point, though, where Kakashi is able to stop Zabuza. They're able to seal him and Haku up. Thus, the hidden mist technique has been dispersed. What's cool about this, though, is that Kakashi actually picks up the Executioner's Blade, and it looks like he's going to use it for his own. And, however, before we even get any more of that, we immediately cut away to another part of the battlefield where we get to see some of our younger characters fighting against the Zetsu army. You have, of course, Neji, Hinata, Kiba, Shino, and they're all doing pretty good, but they do seem a little overwhelmed by the fact that they're fighting against all of these Zetsus. The best part of the episode for me, though, really was the very end. We're taken to a lone battlefield, which looks like a place where Vegeta and Goku fought. And there's this mysterious invisible person walking upon the sands, and then they slowly become visible, and they look like a mummy. And who knows who this mysterious character is. Manga spoilers, keep it low, guys. But the point is, this guy's really cool, and he's walking up onto the battlefield all super calm-like. Unfortunately, he's about to walk up on Gaara, and they pan behind him, and you can see that he has just got an immensely large amount of ninja behind him, and he is really ready to go. He knows who this guy is. He's watching him carefully. He's using his third eye technique, and that's where the episode comes to a close. This one was way better than last week's episode, and that has a lot to do with the fact that they got right to the damn point. Yeah, there were some flashbacks that were sprinkled in, but you know what? They were kind of necessary in a sense, especially when you're talking about Zabuza and Haku. And, you know, it seems like it was focusing more on them than the other swordsmen, kind of like it was in the manga version. but it's not necessarily a bad thing. There were a few action scenes between the 7 swordsmen that I thought were really cool. Of course, all they're doing is destroying Nameless Ninja, but just to see them in action is pretty awesome. I wish I could see them run around a little bit more without the hidden mist, however. And, you know, I'm also still sort of praying in the back of my mind that they're going to create some more fights for these characters, but, you know, I'm not going to hold my breath. But, still, the stuff at the end, though, with, you know, Neji and Hinata and stuff fighting against the Zetsus, that's cool. I like that they're going around to different parts of the battlefield and showing how everybody's doing, and it looks like that's going to pick up even more next week. The whole thing with Jugo and Suigetsu, you know, that's something that's, you know, they haven't even really gotten back to too much in the manga so far. So I'm interested to see how they're going to develop in this story. But I can't wait to see, because I do like Suigetsu's motivation of wanting to become the leader of the new 7 swordsmen. I think that gives him a little more character depth, and it makes him a little more interesting other than the fact that he's just some weird water guy obsessed with swords. But still, pretty entertaining episode. A lot of good action. A lot of different portions of the battlefield were shown. So, honestly, I was entertained by this episode. It didn't blow me away. The animation wasn't crazy. The fighting animation wasn't insane. But like I said, I was wholly entertained by the episode. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Just a really, really entertaining episode with a lot of promise for things that are coming next week. And make sure to tune in next week, because there is going to be some big developments with a lot of new characters showing up that are just plain awesome. Remember, guys, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video. If you guys would like to see the manga review of the things that happened in this episode, you can check it out in the annotation above. It's one of the very first manga reviews that both Christian and I have done. Alright, you guys know that I enjoyed the episode, but what about you guys? How did you feel about this episode? You can let me know with your comments below. And remember, guys, if you like this video, make sure and give it a thumbs up. That concludes this review today, guys. SuperKamiGuru9000, out. I've been so spoiled now, because now every single time I see Hinata, I just kind of wish, why can't she look like Slut Hinata? Or, as I like to affectionately call her, Horinata.